What's going on, you guys? So, I came out here today and I wanted to get some work done on the car. But, as much as I'd like to get some work done on this thing, my garage is currently a fucking disaster. So, I think before I get started, I gotta do some cleaning. I got the car pushed out of the garage just so I can clean it up a little bit better. You know, I haven't really seen this since I got out of the garage yet, but looks pretty cool. I'm liking it. Now, I'm gonna go ahead, get this disaster cleaned up, sorted out, organized, and then I will catch back up with you guys. Alright, there we go. Garage is pretty cleaned out. Got the car back in. And now I'm gonna put it up on jack stands and I'm gonna put the T56 in it. I know I said a few times I was probably gonna wait for that to be one of the last things I do, but I honestly don't see myself coming up with an extra $6 in time to get the car done. And I have the transmission sitting back there. I don't have any parts to do anything else. Might as well get that up there and build a trans bracket for it. So first things first, let's get it up in the air on jack stands because I still haven't hooked my hoist up yet. And we'll go from there. Well, I guess that's a little bit too low to use my jack point. I'll just go from the subframe. Okay, now that we're up in the air, you can see I already have the bell housing on. Fun fact, if you ever need to pull a transmission on one of these cars and you don't need to do a clutch, you just gotta pull trans out. It's way easier to pull the trans out by unbolting it from the bell housing and sliding it all the way out of the car. I mean, even if you have to do a clutch, it's even easier. It's easier to do it that way too, because you can unbolt the trans, get it out of the way. Makes it really easy to get to the top bolts. But yeah, just a little side fact for you guys. Anyways, now that it's out, I'm gonna go grab the gearbox, bolt it up to the bell housing, and then we're gonna see how far back it sits. And I think we're gonna try to go off this factory mounting position here to build the trans mount right around here, and that'll leave a good amount of room over here for the exhaust to run down also. And you know, as you can see, the engine is an empty block that needs to go out to machine work still. So first things first, I gotta dig the trans out, and I need to find, I'd say, at least 3 bolts to hold the transmission on there, just to get everything lined up. All right, there's our trans bolts. And there's our transmission. Since there's no clutch in the car right now, it should be fairly easy to get that up there, since we don't have to worry about aligning an input shaft to a clutch disc or anything like that. So getting it in there shouldn't be too big of a deal. I'm gonna pull it out, throw it on the stand, slide it under the car, catch back up with you guys. Yep, okay. That's definitely not gonna work. It's too high. I just lowered the car down on the jack stands, and that gave me room to get it up there. I got that jack pulled out. I got a smaller jack on there now. I got some bolts holding it in, and it's nice and flush all the way around. And we got good fitment. The one thing that sucks about this is, well, it's a good and a bad. Up there you can see the motor mounts that I built. They're really, really solid. They don't have much flex. So getting to the bolts up there are gonna be kind of a pain, because when I lower this down, it only drops that much. There's like no flex in those motor mounts. So now what I need to do is build a couple brackets to bolt onto here and here, and then another one for here, and then basically just build a mount for that. So I'm gonna get some measurements, get some plates cut up, and catch back up with you guys in a bit. Okay, so I got one of the test cardboard cutout mock-up brackets bolted to the transmission, and I'm doing the chassis side right now, and I wanted to show you guys a little tip for doing something when you're doing cardboard templates like this. So sometimes you'll need to cut holes in there, and going around with a razor blade can kind of be a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes to get a nice clean hole cut. So a little tip, bullet casings. They make for great hole punches through cardboard. There's one thing a lot of car guys have in common, it's usually guns. And most people have bullet casings laying around, so bullet casing makes a great hole punch. All right, now you can see kind of what I'm working with here. This is a bracket I'm gonna build for the transmission. And these are gonna be the plates. I'm gonna do one on each side, but they're gonna be identical, so I only needed to test fit one. Now what I'm gonna do, I gotta cut this off and this off, build a bracket up, and then do a tube straight across here, and then build a gusset bracket down onto the tube, weld it all together. But first, now that all that stuff's done, I gotta get this traced over onto steel and get everything cut up. Okay, so the transmission plate bracket that actually bolts onto the transmission is cut out, drilled up, and it's actually bolted on there right now. What I'm working on right now is the chassis side of the trans mount bracket. I took the templates, cut these out, which matched them, and then I took both plates, kind of sandwiched them together, made sure I had a corner lined up, and then I just go over it with a grinder and make sure they're even all the way around, just to kind of, it's more aesthetics than anything, just to make sure everything matches up and lines up good. So now I'm going to take these, drill out the mount holes, throw them up on the chassis, and then figure out what I need to do for the cross brace section of it. So I'm going to get these drilled out real quick, and then I will get them bolted on the car and meet you guys under there. I just want to show you one more thing before I get back under there. When it comes to doing matching brackets and stuff like this, if you have to make two of them, what I like to do, get both of them rough cut, and then I showed you over there how I grind them down. But what I forgot to show you is that I put a little tack weld on them. That way they stay together, and it also makes it a lot easier because when I put it in my drill press, I only need to drill 2 holes instead of 4, and I know they're going to be identical. And then once the brackets are done, you just cut the tacks off, and you have 2 matching brackets. Okay, I've got all the brackets cut out. I've got tabs welded, drilled out. Everything is bolted up. So these are the base plates for the chassis side. Here's the trans mount. Now basically I gotta get a tube, build a bracket across here, right there, and then connect that to that bracket and triangulate it all. $11 and an 1/8. So I gotta cut this down to 11 1/8 of an inch, put that in, tack it in place, pull it off, weld it up. All right, so that's how that's gonna be. I can still get to these bolts, which is good. I'm gonna go ahead and tack this into place in a couple spots. And then once it's tacked in, I'm gonna go ahead, pull it all out, weld it up on the bench, and then put it back in, and then build the final brace for the transmission. Okay, that's all tacked in place. Unbolt it, pull it out, drill a hole in it, weld it on the bench. So here's the bottom section of our trans bracket right here. And so this faces towards the front of the car. Now we're gonna have the other bracket that's on the transmission right here, basically what I'm going to do is take a piece of plate, bring it down like that sort of, and then that'll weld to that flat spot, and then I'm going to gusset it to that when I'm done. I'm going to give this a few minutes to cool down, then throw it on the car, then take up some measurements and get the other piece cut out. Then we'll get that tacked in place, pull it out, weld it up, and then that should be about it. So you can see right here I got this plate, and this is going to go right here. Kind of triangulate that, just like so. So I'm going to go ahead, get this tacked into place in a couple spots here, and then once I know it's, you know, pretty sturdy, I'm going to go ahead, pull it all out, and then weld it up on the bench, and then it should be done. So now we have it all cut out, tacked together, almost ready to go. But before we finish it, what I want to do is build a gusset that'll go from here down to here. So it'll actually kind of go down to this tube here and give it a little bit more strength that way. And I'm going to do that on both sides here before I weld it. Because if I weld this right now as it is, what could happen is that could move or pull slightly. But if I get those gusset brackets in and I tack all that stuff in and get that done first, I'll know that everything's still square and true and it's right where we want it. So I'm going to get that stuff cut out, tacked on, and I'm going to weld it all together and just finish it right now. And then I will catch up with you guys when I'm done. All right, and it's done. It is all welded together. You can see the gussets that I added on the sides, just to make it a little bit stronger and keep everything nice, true, and square. Now I'm gonna go ahead, let that cool off for a minute, and I'm probably gonna throw a coat of paint on it, slap it up in the car, and then we are done. All right, and just like that, it is done. All painted up, ready to go. So I'm gonna get it thrown back in the car real quick, and I will show you guys how it looks. Let's see, and there it is, bolted up, holding everything in place. Everything's tight. Perfect. No real interference or anything, so the exhaust has got plenty of clearance. So, you know, using that factory mount spot was definitely a really good idea. It's also going to give me a spot over here to make coolant line hangers for that, because you can see I just got that tab holding it up right now. But there it is, trans mount done, and transmission kind of installed, even though it's got to come back out anyways. Now there is one issue with this transmission and length setup and all that, and I'll show you. So normally that's where the shifter would come out, right there. Yeah, it's up there. So I'm definitely gonna need to cut this open at least, just so I can have access to where the shifter will bolt on, and then I'll have to make a bracket and linkage adapter and shifter to go to the shifter that's in there. So I'll have the shifter that bolts onto the trans, and then I'm gonna make a shift handle with a bunch of linkage and stuff on it to connect to that. That way my shifter will be right where I need it to be. But it is something that needed to get done, and now it is done. So, what's next? I know, what's next? Because I got a lot of shit that still needs to get done, obviously. And I haven't bought anything for the car in a week. It feels like forever, but it's only been a week. I haven't bought anything for it. So I'm trying to save money up so I can get all the stuff I need to build the engine or finish the turbo kit, or, you know, I gotta buy the expensive stuff, so trying to save some money for that. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, follow the build along, and until next time, I will catch you guys later.